Welcome back. All right, so I think we're late enough into the season now that we can start having discussions on divisions. And I figured today I want to talk about the Pacific Division and the race for first place. There are 5 teams that legitimately could end up being first place in this division. Now, what's helped us along is that the current leaders of the division, Vegas, have a 3-5-2 record over their last 10 games. It has allowed other teams to really get into the hunt. It has allowed other teams to end up far, far closer to the division title right now than was expected, say, a month ago. In that now the Oilers are only 2 points back of that first spot. LA and Seattle, 1 point back. And Calgary, 6 points back. Calgary, the argument can be made about whether or not Calgary gets in there and whether or not they can do that, and we'll go through it. I want to start with Vegas. So of course Vegas right now is dealing with a lot of injuries. Those injuries have hampered this team to that 3-5-2 record over their last 10. Overall, their record's 30, 18, and 4. They have a 615 points percentage. Their points percentage is second in the division behind Seattle. And Edmonton's points percentage is getting into that same region. So, for Vegas, they really need to turn it around. Injuries or not, things need to start going their way. Their goals, they're scoring at a rate that's 17th highest in the league when it comes to goals scored per game. They're allowing goals against at a rate of 12th highest, or 12th best in the league, with goals against per game. So their overall numbers are kind of middle of the road, which is where this division is at right now when it comes to deciding on their winner. Now, their upcoming schedule, and I thought this was worth looking at. I do this certain seasons, certain divisions, and such. But for Vegas, right now, as I'm recording this on February 8th, they have one more road game on this road trip. Then they come home for 3. They're on the road for 1. They're at home for 2. Then they're on the road for 1. They're at home for 3. Now, normally that schedule, you would say, well, that favors Vegas. The problem is Vegas's home record in 27 games, they're 14-13. On the road, in 25 games, they're 16-5-4. So the good news is they've got more games left on the road than they have at home because their road record is better than their home record. The bad news is that over the next little while here, as they're fighting it out with these teams, they do have more home games than road games. They do finish the season with 4 out of 6 being played on the road. So that could be key, is keeping that road record up. And then once they start getting healthier, and they should start getting healthier. If you're snickering right now hearing that, I understand, because we talk about this all the time. Once this team gets healthy, and they may not, but if this team figures out its way around these injuries and does the right moves at the deadline, then we may very well be talking about a first place Vegas team. But I like Seattle's chances, to be honest. Seattle has a 630 points percentage. They're 29-16-5. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. Their goals scored per game, they are now 5th in the league at goals scored per game. They're 17th in goals against per game. And that's something I think they'll be looking to shore up at the deadline. They have 63 points. They're only 1 point out of first place in the division. They've played 2 fewer games than Vegas. The division could very well be theirs. But getting those defensive numbers up and improving the goaltending numbers should be key for them as well. Now, they've got 4 more games on the road coming up first. Before they come home from 2, they're on the road for 1, they're at home for 2, on the road for 4, and at home for 4. So long road trips, long homestands. I kind of think this schedule should put them ahead of Vegas by the end of this. There's a lot of road games here, and they're very good on the road. They do end the season with a home and home against Vegas. So for Seattle, maybe it comes down to those final 2 games deciding who wins the division. Maybe it's between Seattle and Vegas, and that could be kind of a fun matchup, couldn't it? So at home, 26 games played, 13-10-3 record. On the road in 24 games, a 16-6-2 record. This is a division of teams that are pretty good on the road and pretty mediocre at home, being the best teams in the division. And so it has to be frustrating for those fans because you see that team go out on the road, play really well, and you're like, can't wait for them to come back and cheer them. And then they come home and their home play isn't the same. And you're throwing your hands in the air going, what happened to the road team? We want those guys. So for Seattle, I do like their chances. I think that the odds of them ending up winning the division are pretty good in that they can add at the deadline as well. They don't have the same cap headaches as some of the other teams they're fighting it out with. The Los Angeles Kings, 53 games, 28-18-7 record. Their 594 points percentage is 4th of the 5 teams on the board. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10 as well. Their goals scored per game, they're at 15th in the league there. Goals against per game, they are 23rd. That is the worst number of the 5 teams on the board. And again, it's something that needs to get better. That's why when there was discussion of, Demko might want out of Vancouver, immediately people said, well, LA, right? And there's really nothing there at this stage. But they're 1 point back of Vegas for first place. I've been appreciative of the play of Phoenix Copley, but if this team's really going to take that next step in the playoffs, they're either going to need to have Quick find that playoff form come playoff time, or I think they're going to need something else in the net. Whether that's there at the deadline or not remains to be seen. They have 2 games coming up at home, then they're on the road for 1, at home for 1, on the road for 5. So there's a big road trip right there. 3 at home, 1 on the road, and then a 7-game homestand. So with LA, we really don't need to get into how they finish out the season, as I'm doing with the other teams. I think that 7-game homestand is going to tell us a lot. Their home record is mildly better than the one they have on the road. They're 14-9-2 at home. That's 25 games played. They've got 28 road games played, 14-9-5. Hurting them is that they've played more games than everybody else that they're fighting out for these playoff spots. But again, if they do really well in that 7-game homestand, considering Seattle and Vegas having their own hiccups here and there, LA could end up being first in the division. And the 5-game road trip is obviously key as well. The 14-9-5 road record isn't as good as their home record of 14-9-2. But if they can stay 5 games above 500 on the road and continue to play really well at home, they've definitely got a chance. So that's a team to definitely watch at the deadline, because it does feel like with the LA Kings, they might be 1 or 2 pieces away from maybe a run to the conference final. Because I think any of the 5 teams on this board could make a run to a conference final, because the Pacific is so wide open. And of course, people will say it's mediocre. I can't make the argument it's not mediocre on some level, but I also can't say this isn't fascinating stuff. So the Edmonton Oilers last year had a monstrous second half of the season, right? This year it looks like they're doing it again. So 51 games played by the Oilers, 29-18-4 record, 608 points percentage, as previously stated, puts them behind Vegas and Seattle, but they're 8-1-1. They've got 17 points in their last 10 games, as opposed to the 8 points in the last 10 games for Vegas and 11 points in the last 10 games for Seattle and LA. So you extrapolate that out. If they go 8-1-1 over their next 10, they should shoot right up to first in the division. It's not going to change the narrative about how mediocre it is and all that stuff, but being first in the division could be key. So for Edmonton, they're first in goals scored per game, which won't surprise anybody, because McDavid alone, it feels like, should be able to get them there. They're 20th in goals against in the NHL. But again, and I've mentioned this in the recap of the game last night between Edmonton and Detroit, Campbell's numbers are getting better, and the overall defensive numbers for Edmonton, I think, are getting better. So that 20th might be a little bit misleading at this stage. They do have 62 points, as stated. They're 2 points back of Vegas, 1 point back of Seattle and LA. Upcoming schedule, they have 3 on the road. They're very good on the road. They are ridiculously good on the road right now. They have 2 at home, 1 on the road, 1 at home, 2 on the road, 3 at home, and 4 of their final 5 are on the road. So they will finish out their season with 4 out of 5 on the road. They've played more at home than on the road so far this season, so that tracks. 27 home games, a mediocre record of 13-11-3. On the road, in 24 games, a record of 16-7-1. We may be in this odd position where the teams that are battling it out for first place are teams that don't play all that well at home. So is home ice advantage really an advantage if the team's better on the road than they are at home? I understand, too, that the playoffs are a different beast than the regular season. And so for the Oilers, it really is just about win your games now. Don't worry about the home road record so much. Just win when you can. And then in the playoffs, may the chips fall where they may. Now, for the Flames, again, it does get a little more difficult to make the argument for the Flames. They're 24-17-10, 569 points percentage. They have 58 points. They're only 4 back of the Oilers. They play the same number of games as the Oilers. They're only 6 back of Vegas, but they're 5-3-2 in their last 10, so they've got 12 points in their last 10 games. And it is a situation where Calgary needs to win games. They do need to win games in regulation as well, because in terms of regulation wins, they don't have a tiebreaker on the Oilers, as an example. 16th in goals scored per game. They're 14th in goals against per game. They're a middle-of-the-pack team. Calgary's been very middle of the pack since a really hot start for the season. And their road record is part of the problem. So on the road in 26 games, they're 10-8-8. They're 2 games above NHL 500. but they've also only won 10 out of 26 games on the road. And so that has really submarined their season to this point. They're currently below the playoff line, though tied in points with the Colorado Avalanche. Their home record in 25 games, 14-9-2. That is the same home record as the LA Kings. It is the road record that puts them where they are. Upcoming, they have 3 on the road, 3 at home, 3 on the road, 3 at home. So there's a nice 3-3-3. And I think that's the best you can have is a 3-game homestand, 3-game road trip. If you're at home too long, I think things get a little stale. If you're on the road too long, you can get exhausted. And then those really long road trips, that first game back after a really long road trip can be a downer. So going 3-3-3-3, and then 2 on the road, 2 at home. I think that's a pretty good schedule. And 4 of their final 6 are at home. So in the event that Calgary, over those 3 on the road and these 3 on the road, if they can get their road record to a better number, they can pull themselves into this conversation, because these 3 teams here are not setting the world on fire. The only one that seems to be is the Oilers. And so, yeah, we'll see how it ends up running. I think of the 5 teams on the board, I kind of like the Oilers to end up finishing first. That's why I'm wearing the Oilers gear. But this can change, right? This can change very quickly. 2 weeks from now, the numbers may be completely different. But with Vegas's injuries, with Seattle, still learning how to win as a team and all this, I think they'll still have their hiccups here and there. Seattle's still a playoff team, obviously. For the Kings, the goaltending will always make me nervous. And yeah, I kind of like the Oilers' chances in this. I think that they've got a really good shot at it. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who ends up winning this division? And again, I know people will say, well, it doesn't matter because this division sucks. And Central's just going to kill them anyways. Sometimes that happens, and then sometimes you end up with a Northwest matchup between Montreal and Vegas, and Montreal just wins it. So when it comes to the playoffs, it's a whole other beast, and I do think that a nice long run for the Oilers could be in the offing yet again. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.